In the patterns of distribution, we will be discussing about the limits of distribution. An organism cannot live on every place on the earth. They have certain habitats and they cling to that habitat. Why? Because there are limits within which the distribution of an organism is spatially confined, spatially related to the space. An organism can live in one space. It cannot live because in the other spaces because it is having certain adaptations to that space, and it has certain resources which it is consuming at this space. So there are different factors which we will be discussing. Beyond these limited, it is unable to sustain its population, and these are determined by the barriers, but the barriers may be of various kinds. So, what are these barriers? There are physical barriers. There are physical barriers that may prevent the spread of an organism. For example, the high mountain chains, expanses of water, areas of arid desert may confine a species to one particular region. For example, the Himalayan mountain chain. So, if we see the biodiversity that is found the south of Himalayan chain and to the north of Himalayan chain, they both have the different flora and fauna. Both regions of the earth, of the Asia, they are having different flora and fauna. Of course, that is pertaining to the different origins of both the regions as well. But a species which was living on the Indian part of the Himalayan region cannot go to the Chinese part of the Himalayan region due to the the physical barrier in the form of the mountains. And then there are the climatic barriers. For example, a species which is living in the hot environments cannot go towards the cold environments in the north. Frost can prove fatal to many tropical plants because the formation of ice within the cells of the plant followed by melting disrupts the cell membranes and result in the deaths. And then there are the drought. Drought can cause the problem of desiccation. So, as we have said that the tropical plants they don't have the adaptation against the frost, so their cells will die in a colder environment. And same is the true for the cold environment plants. They cannot have the condition. They cannot live, or aquatic plants they cannot live in the drought-like condition in which the water is less. And then there are the geological barriers. Geology and its effect on the soil chemistry and structure is often limiting for plants and for soil inhabiting invertebrate animals and microbes. So, and overcoming demands effective strategies. There, how can an organism or the plants they can go from one place to another? They are having they demand effective dispersal strategies. That means they have to spread their seed far and wide, and then they can go from one place to another. So, and then there is the nature of habitat. At lower level, we see the nature of habitat. It can impose a limit to a species. So, at higher level it does not, but at a lower level, a species can be limited to one place. A forest species may be deterred from crossing an area of grassland, or a marsh organism may fail to travel across the dry habitat to reach the next area of the wetland. So, grass land may have the different habitat. So, nature of habitat means that if there is a grassland between the two woodlands, the one type of woodland has a particular monkey which cannot cross through the grassland because there are no trees there, and the other woodland will have the different set of ape species as compared to the other woodland. So that means they will having the different set of biological diversity, the flora and the fauna. And then there are the biological barriers, that is increased predation, parasitism, disease, and competition. So if one organism goes from one place to another, it may risk all of these to go into the other areas, and that's why it is confined to its original areas. From the more robust species, if it were to move or beyond a specific area's limit, the insect that leave its forest floor log is exposed beetles, shrews, and insectivorous birds. So all of the insects which are leaving its very small micro habitat, they can be eaten by the other species, and so they don't leave that habitat. And then there are the historical factors. For example, the oceans are found or the mountains are found. They create barriers that confine species to a limited areas. The changes in the pattern of land masses over the surface of Earth have resulted in creation of physical barriers, sometimes between closely related taxa. For example, if there was one part of the land which was originally part of the continent and then it separated in the form of island, both may have the original type of organism on them, but those organisms will have their evolution due to the different selection pressures differently, and today we will find their different distribution on the island as well as the mainland. So the sheer chance in the distribution of organism, as we have discussed, that there is the stochastic uh, change as well. That means we cannot. It is just matter of chance. The arrival of wind-borne insect or seed at a particular point in space cannot be predicted with certainty, and the first arrival may well be at advantage over those arriving later. So these are the factors in which which is the which affect the pattern of distribution. A seed which by chance arrival had arrival earlier will have much more distribution than a seed which arrived later. And then there is the endemic. The term endemic is pertaining to some plants and animals which are confined in their distribution and within the areas in which they are evolved. So this is related to the how an organism is evolved at a certain place, and now it is considered native to that space. For example, the kangaroos are native to the Australia. So the paleoendemics and new endemics. So the paleoendemics means that an organism in the ancient times was there, and now it lives there as well. For example, the we take the example of koalas in New Zealand. They are native to that part of the land because they evolved there, and now they are still living there. And then there are the new neo-endemics. So let's talk about the aborigines in the Australia, the native people of Australia. The origin of human was in Africa, and these were the people who migrated from all those areas between to the Australia, and they are living there. So they are new neo endemics. That means they didn't evolve just there, they arrived there and now they are native there. So endemic means native, and paleo means ancient, and neo means new. So new endemics are those species which arrive at a certain part, and today we only find those species at that particular area, and they are called neo endemics.